Do. Forgot to mute my mic. We're going to get going here in about 3 or 4 minutes. We're going to give folks a chance to get in. Let me pause that. Looks like Restream's happy. Periscope is up. YouTube is up. LinkedIn is up. Twitch is sending data. Bruce says, wow, early. Am I not usually early? I think last time maybe I was a little late. I was on top of it because I was watching JP. All right, let me pause the YouTube. Excellent connection. Awesome, 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 awesome. Hey, Bruce, how are you? I gotta remember to sit this way. At least then I'm more in the middle. I need like zoom in on the cat camera. Spook's like stealth cat right now. He's there. It's just the camera can't handle how bright the sun is. So we'll get going in a few minutes. After I let people, if you have questions and stuff, I'm happy to answer them. And I was trying to think of what we could do for CircuitPython Day next week. So the deep dive will be on Wednesday for CircuitPython Day, and I was wondering maybe I should like get my act together a bit and have people ask me questions or something. I know we've covered a lot of like the history of CircuitPython on the stream before, but maybe that's an appropriate thing to have. I hope folks got the memo that I'm on a day early because I'm going to have a 4-day weekend. We're going for a hike tomorrow, which should be fun. Good to get outside before the weather gets bad again here. I was pretty excited. I thought of something to... I actually did the blog post and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. If you see, it doesn't actually include like what my plan is. But pretty quickly, I had an idea on what we could do. And it should be a new topic, which is cool. Bruce is getting his Discord running. Discord's great. I don't know how many people got the memo. We'll wait 1 more minute and then I'll get going. We can collect people over time. How do you like the new camera? I'm pretty happy with it so far. Hi, Jim. Yeah, I was sick of the autofocus on the older camera, so this is the Sony ZV1 now. Just the newer, basically a newer video focus version of the camera that I was using. And it does eye tracking, so my eyes should be nice and in focus. But it's like way more responsive too. So if I hold up like this board, if I like, look at how quick that is. That way. Like the autofocus is just like way more responsive. So I'm pretty happy with it. And it also means that my image is actually 16:9 now too, which is why I'm like having more trouble staying in frame. Cool. See Grover's here as well. And I don't see any chats from Twitch or anything, but if anybody's watching on Twitch, say hello. Feel free to ask questions. Ah, yes. As long as it's in front of your eyes, right? Yes, but this, here we can experiment. Hopefully this won't destroy it, but there is actually a product showcase mode. So if I hit that, it no longer does the face tracking. I don't think the focus is that bad. Like it's still pretty good, but it's not actually doing eye tracking, but it like specifically can handle like even if my face is showing, it's like a product showcase mode. Oh, so yeah, this is an After Dark version of the tiny FPGA AX board. I actually haven't tested it yet. I just assembled it, but it's a good thing to test the product showcase mode. So that's one option, and then but when you're on showcase mode, you can't do it doesn't do the eye tracking. So I put this button here, and it crops it just a little bit, which is weird because it's not doing any sort of stabilization, but yeah, I've been pretty happy with it so far. It's not available on Adafruit, but yeah. Yeah, I've been really impressed. I just got it on Tuesday. Um, yeah, she needs one of those. I was actually watching JP stream and I was like, oh, maybe JP needs that too. But yeah, it's the Sony ZV1. I have the box around here somewhere. Yeah, Mr. Certainly asked Sony ZV1. Cool. Chat test. Thank you, Alvaro, from Twitch and also from YouTube. Let's get going. I said I was going to start like 3 minutes ago. But yeah, that I was pretty happy with the autofocus on this. I think it's one of the better autofocuses on the market right now. Yeah, it's not a DSLR. It's like a high-end point and shoot. So it's not interchangeable lenses, which used to be all about, and now I'm like, I don't care to spend more money on lenses. I'm totally fine just getting a built-in lens. So yeah, the setup is it's a Sony ZV1 with HDMI output that you can turn all of the overlay stuff off. And it's not actually, the camera's not recording at all. It's just streaming out the HDMI into a Magewell, which does the conversion from HDMI to USB 3. And so I think what happens is if you ever see it freeze, it's because the Linux kernel like dies processing the video. And so I have to like unplug it and replug it back in to get it back going. It's not the camera that does that. It's like between the computer and the Magewell that is the issue. Okay. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with it. Hopefully it looks good. Like I didn't account for compression or anything that happens, but I think that my OBS is set up so the compression should be like relatively light, at least from me up to Restream up to all of the Twitch things, and then I don't know from the streaming servers and then back down to you. I'm not so sure. But yeah, so let me get going. Spend money on lenses for the Pi's new camera. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm liking the camera so far. It took a little while to figure out that like I couldn't do product showcase and do eye tracking at the same time. Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Scott. If you didn't know, I work on CircuitPython for Adafruit. Adafruit is an open source hardware and software company based out of New York. They design hardware here. Whoa! Pavre6 says it's 2:33 a.m. out here in Hyderabad, but staying awake to join the deep dive. Thank you so much for staying up. Really, you don't have to. You can always watch it later, but happy to have you here, POV Ray 6. Yeah, so Adafruit pays me to work on CircuitPython and do these streams. So please support them. Go to adafruit.com. They've got a really awesome Stemma QT freebie giveaway that just started. I think it's $150 or more. They'll throw in a free Stemma QT. If you're logged into an account, then they'll make sure that you don't get the same one twice, which is awesome. The Stemma QTs are a great form factor. I was like kind of skeptical myself when Limor started, and like all things that Limor does, it just like is really awesome. Like once you see it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. That's a great idea. And I've already like have in my mind that I want to do like an FPGA Stemma board as well. Yeah, so that's one housekeeping thing. For those of you who don't know, I normally stream on Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific, but I'm taking tomorrow off because it's a long weekend. We're going to go for a hike. That's why I'm on Thursday of this week. Next week, I'm also shifting it, even though I'll be around on Friday. I'm going to do my deep dive on Wednesday because Wednesday is CircuitPython day. So basically what we did is we took some of the CircuitPython-y things that happened not on Wednesday and we kind of moved them to Wednesday. So that you're going to have like a lot of streams happening consecutively all day, which should be really exciting. If you do have ideas for what I should do in the deep dive to make the deep dive next week special, let me know. I'll probably just do what I normally do, which is like kind of decide on the fly what I want to do. But if you have any ideas that you'd like to see, let me know. There isn't actually a lot of work days for me between then and now because it's basically Tuesday, actually, because I'm taking tomorrow and Monday off. So I'll have to come up with something. Maybe I'll go, I guess I should definitely do CircuitPython stuff, but maybe I'll pick up a bigger task or SPI is broken right now. So maybe that's what I'll do is we'll do some like hardcore debugging of the SPI stuff and maybe talking about how to manage our memory now that we have the PSRAM going as well. I think that's what we'll do next week. So one other housekeeping thing before I dive into what we're going to do. The cat who's in the wrong corner, up in the corner here, that's Spook. He is epileptic. He does have seizures from time to time. If he does, I'll just pause, mute my mic, and watch him while he does that. Make sure he doesn't get wrapped up in any of the cords around here. So just a heads up with that. I don't expect him to have one because he actually had one earlier today. He rarely has two in one day, but just a heads up in case that does happen. Okay. Yeah, so generally what I like to do is I like to chit chat with you all throughout these 2 hours. But I like to take the first half hour, 45 minutes to just kind of like cat needs his own ZV1. Yeah, if you want to sponsor me on GitHub, maybe, but I don't know if Adafruit will get me a second ZV1 just for a cat cam. One thing I could do is I could actually try to, if I got another Magewell, I could use my old Sony camera for the cat cam instead. But really, it's not that big of a deal. You know, cat cam doesn't show up on my desktop anyway. So I think during the recap, any questions you have, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them. I want to talk about the request stuff that I've been doing. And again, Johnny gave me some grief about not unit testing, so I'll show that. No sound, though, laying next to sleeping Emma. Well, Mark, hopefully the closed captions are okay. They should be on. I think I did remember to set the stream latency to that like middle tier that's really nice. So I want to talk about some request stuff, and then the thing that I thought would be really interesting for a longer, like hour and a half section, is actually I got the PR out for the native Wi-Fi stuff, and Dan got back to me. So I've got trying to lip read. Good luck with that. I'll try to enunciate. So yeah, in the long section of the deep dive, I want to get into like, okay, you have a PR and now you've gotten feedback. What is the process for going through that feedback, and specifically what is my process? Some of them are really simple and straightforward, but others are not quite as simple, I don't think. So that's basically what we're going to do. I haven't even read over it yet, but I saw it come in and I was like, that's one part of the process that I haven't shown on this stream before. So I thought that would be really, really helpful because, giving, I haven't done a review on it yet, so maybe that's something I should do as well. But getting review feedback is a good skill as well. Okay, so let's switch to the desktop and let's just chit chat about kind of a smattering of things that are going on. And if you have questions, as always, feel to ask them in the chats. If you are on one of the streaming services, I encourage you to get on the Adafruit Discord server as well. It's a chat server that lasts all week long, that we're on regularly every day. So I think that's the best place if you're not there yet to do that. You can go to the URL adafru.it/discord, which is our short link that will get you over to the Discord server. And that actually reminds me, one thing I want to just show off that has nothing to do with CircuitPython, but I just did and I thought might be useful for people, is totally unrelated. Let me pull up the desktop. So if we look at my OshPark projects, project history. So these are all the boards that I've ordered from OshPark recently. And what I do, so these two were not designed by me. This is Debug Edge, which have I talked about Debug Edge on here? It's basically trying to come up with a standard connector and pad layout that allows you to have access to like debug lines like SWD or JTAG, but without requiring a connector on the device itself, because connectors cost money. So there's Debug Edge. This is what it looks like. These are standard pin headers here. Okay, great. Yeah, these are old designs. We should show this. Mark heard about it last time and really ran with it, making it much more awesome than those designs show. If you want to know more, you can go to debug-edge.io. And I wrote out some blurbs about like the different pinouts and what the 4-pin pinout versus the 6-pin versus the 8-pin and the 10-pin are. And based on Mark's feedback, I also did add I added UART into it. I didn't. Maybe I don't say it here. I do say it here. But basically, the 8-pin has the TX out from the device to the host, and then the 10-pin adds the reverse direction as well. But let's just show off Mark's work here, because it's quite awesome. And I think the renders are in one of these issues. Slot issues. I haven't read that yet. So this is the one that has a lot. But what we were playing with is I really wanted the PCB footprint to be kind of unique to the spec, so to speak. And I was originally playing around with these like wings and this angledness to it. And Mark just took it and ran with it, made it a lot better. You can see this is kind of our iteration here. And Mark came up with this awesome spider, which makes so much sense for a debug connector. So that's been really awesome. And you can start to see the renders. I was pushing for this like inset outset sort of ground pin, but you'll see that Mark came up with something better for that as well. Some more iteration. And here's the first one where you actually see that the idea that the spider's on one side, so on the host side, and then the thing you're trying to debug has the little chip icon instead. And Mark's ordered this on a PCB, but I haven't, so we'll see how well this looks in real life. But you can see a render here on a board from Mark, and it just gets better and better as we go along. So I'm super excited. So what Mark came up with was having the ground pin actually be a bit pointy, so they have to point at each other, which makes total sense. So yeah, it's looking really awesome. I'm really happy with it. Mark did an excellent job. So yeah, if that's interesting to you, check that out. That was totally distracting. So let's pop up the stack one thing. What I also do on my designs, if I have the space, if we look here, is I put this URL, Chickadee Tech, and then a short kind of identifier for the board, and then the version. So this would be like Chickadee Tech Game Boy Breakout V1. So this is breaking out all of the Game Boy pins through, these are logic level shifters. And then I'm trying to come up with this 10 pin, like 1 byte per connector sort of pinout as well, so that you can like easily handle 8 pins at a time. And somebody tried to actually go to this URL and it didn't work. because they wanted to find out more information. But now it does actually work. And it works as just like a short link. So like just like the adafru.it/discord, it works as a short link. However, I was looking for open source short link solutions, and all the ones I could find required like an active server and a database to actually look them up. And because I host so much on GitHub Pages, I actually wanted a static way of doing it. So let me know if this is interesting to you. But what I did is in just this Chickadee Tech CKD Tech repo, I just made this very simple generate redirects Python file, like all 18 lines of it. And basically it takes in a TOML file that lists all the redirects, and then it just creates basically HTML stubs that do the redirection, so that you can just host like a redirect domain on GitHub Pages. So here you can see there's this the standard HTML that goes everywhere in all those places to do the redirect, and then this to URL just gets replaced in all these spots with the place we're redirecting, and then you just have this TOML file that says like what is the path and where does it go. Very, very straightforward, very, very simple, but I was happy that it worked so well. You know, I'm happy to edit this file when I want more of them, and in fact I should put more in there. But it's like a very simple way to get that short URL service without having to run a server at all. So yeah, that's my detour into some of the stuff I've been working on. Let's talk requests. So if you saw Show and Tell yesterday, you probably saw this already. But I've been working really hard to make requests, kind of moving it towards this session model where you give the session like the socket provider, so like a socket pool, and then you also give it an SSL context thing, an SSL context if you want to do SSL with it. So I added unit tests there, and now I've made a pull request. And this pull request has all the changes in it. I haven't actually looked at this. Here you can see lots of the changes. If you've tried the native Wi-Fi stuff, I pointed you to this. You probably tried it already. Mainly, the main thing is like doing receive into. So like sharing buffers so that you're not allocating memory every time you need anything. And I made it, I actually redid a non-trivial amount of this earlier this week. There's a lot of this, like, I was originally buffering in like an array of byte arrays, a list of byte arrays, and it had this problem of like finding the character pairs or sequences that we're looking for is really tedious. So what I decided to do to simplify it was that for its buffering internally, it just has one byte array. If it runs out of space, it makes that byte array bigger. That's fine. So I simplified this a lot. And then what I did is I did two things to test it. One thing I did was I modified the examples. So there are now like requests advanced CPython version of the examples. So these are ones that you can run just on your regular development box that has regular CPython. That's an awesome way to test against like one particular server and how it responds. The GitHub one here that gets the GitHub stars for CircuitPython was actually a really good test because sometimes it gives a chunked response and other times it doesn't, which is very weird. But it made me realize that my original implementation of chunked responses didn't work for JSON. It only worked for text. So I had to reorganize like the code in order for that to happen. So yeah, there's these CPython versions of the examples. And then, let's see. And then I added tests. So I actually have unit tests for like chunks. And I found this problem where like if a chunk, if headers, That was a separate header problem. But basically, when I find issues now, I can just quickly or easily create a unit test to make sure that I actually fix it and that it stays fixed. So the way to run those, if we're just here. So what I was actually trying to do today is like, I thought that I had made requests backwards compatible. And so I have this demo on PyPortal that I'm trying to just switch over to, like, everything is as is in the bundle except Adafruit requests. Turns out it doesn't actually work, which is a bummer, and what I was working on before this, because, but this is good. This is a warning I added saying like, hey, like, you're a socket that doesn't have receive into. That's not great. Like, I have some compatibility code that basically like reads out gets the byte string from the socket and then copies it into the buffer that we wanted to get it into in the first place. But again, you're like, you have an extra buffer that's like has no reason to be there. But that's why I just did it as a print. It's not an exception. So all the code that works because of that compatibility code will still work. It just will print something out saying like, hey, you should really provide a receive into. And then we'll be able to run down sockets and tweak them to do that. The reason it's not working right now is that, well, I don't know what this error is, but the connect method on our socket, as our socket has been defined up to this point for like ESP32 SPI and the other ones, is it takes an extra parameter called connection type, which is not a standard parameter in CPython. And so I hadn't gotten my backwards compatibility stuff to work with that. So that was what I was working on right before this. But let's ignore that for now. And I'll just show you kind of what I was talking about with the example. Basically the demo that I did for show and tell yesterday. So here's an example of running this the request GitHub. And you can see that it just gets the star. So now I can use Adafruit requests in CPython, and I can test against the server pretty quickly and easily. The other thing that we can do now is we can just run Python and PyTest, which is in my history that I hit right and it just filled it out for me. If I do that, it runs all the tests, and these tests do not actually hit a real server. Actually, I should show how this works. So I created this class I call mockit, which is a mock socket. So that it doesn't actually do anything, but it provides results. It does some things like when you create a mockit, you give it the bytes that you want it to respond with. And it will kind of go through that series of bytes with read line and receive. And those are kind of proxied through a mock object so that it records all of the calls to it. So this is the test for the legacy stuff. This is the thing that I'm going to have to improve so that it does the connection type checking as well, which I'm not quite sure how to do, but I'll figure it out. And then so that's legacy mockit. And then we have a newer mockit, which is like with the API that I'm shooting for with the newer stuff. Where there's now a socket pool, which here I call a mockit pool. Maybe that's too clever. And it adds receive into and SSL context wrapper. Yeah, I gotta figure out how to do that. And then I actually had some tests that I checked in before this change, so you can see here how the test, like the calling convention stuff. Unexpected Maker CircuitPython days next week. But happy CPy day. You know what? Actually, I should also mention something. If there's anything to celebrate this week, I think it's more congratulations to MicroPython. Because they just released 1.13. So if you do use MicroPython at all, you can check out they released 1.13, and they've got this CircuitPython downloads inspired page as well, which makes selecting stuff easier, which is awesome. And we could just pull it up as well. I don't see, here's the link to the GitHub, but we can just take a glance at the release notes. And it's already out of date. There's one commit to master. But yes, so the headline of this release is micro async IO that they spend a lot of time on is aims to be more compatible with CPython's async IO module, which is awesome. The main changes use a task object for each coroutine, allowing more flexibility to queue tasks in various places, such as the main loop, tasks waiting on events, locks, or other tasks. It no longer requires pre-allocating a fixed queue size for the main run loop. A pairing heap is used to queue tasks, and the core is optionally implemented in C. That's great. They use a code formatter for C and black for Python, which is awesome, and something that we're going to have to do when we merge in these changes or newer changes. But yeah, lots of good stuff here. So if you're a MicroPython user, check that out. Give it a whirl. Congrats again to Damien and Jim and the rest of the MicroPython folks. We were excited. We're at some point going to pull in new version or new code from MicroPython, so we were happy to see this stable release, because I think what we'll do is we'll just take the latest stable release and merge that in, so it's very clear. We can be very clear about what version we're kind of matched up with. The current code right now is like somewhere between 11 and 12. So having a concrete one is great. Okay, that's a distraction. Yeah, so these tests are great. They've been really helpful, asserting that like things are fixed and things are working. So keep an eye on that if you're interested. I should uncomment this. I think I did. But actually, the new request module also reuses sockets, because like starting a TCP socket can actually be kind of costly, I think, because there's like a warm-up period to it. So HTTP 1.1 allows you to like make multiple requests over the same socket. So what Adafruit requests with this change will do is that it'll actually hang on to sockets until when it tries to allocate or connect. Until it tries to connect, it will, if the connect fails with the memory error, it will delete all the sockets that are not in use, and then try to create it again. So that's what this reuse test is checking. But I have to get it fixed so that it can actually work with legacy code, and I'm working on that. So any questions? I think that's about it in terms of the recap stuff that I wanted to do. I do have a PyPortal on my desk. Let's see how the camera handles this. But I do have a PyPortal here with the same exception message I showed that is what I'm using to test the new requests in a legacy application. So I'll have to get that going. Maybe I'll do that Tuesday or later. I don't have that much time after this stream. One thing I should also talk about is before we get to the code review stuff, CircuitPython 6.0 Alpha 3 is out. And Dan also did all of the download updates. So all of this stuff has been resorted again. Based on download counts. It's cool to see Teensy 4 up here, not too far from the top. And then if we go down to the bottom, we've broken 150 boards, which is amazing. You can see that the Kaluga's here. This is what we worked on last week. So it's already in here. Maybe I missed the release. I expected it to... Yeah, I must have missed the release. Oops. But 6.0 Alpha 3 is out. That's a lot of broken boards. What do you mean broken? Not sure what you mean by broken. Oh, interesting. This looks like the same connector that... I wonder what connector they use. That looks like the same connector that is used for the debug edge that we're doing. Doesn't say. You don't have any pictures of it connected? No? Oh, right. Thank you, Steven. Steven says, you said we've broken 150 boards. Yes. Mark Olson asks, have you seen the Wi-Fi scanner GUI demo for the Wio terminal? I have not, but I don't think it's CircuitPython. Hey, look, they are using the same connectors. That's what they look like. Interesting. I didn't realize that. It does look like the same connector. I have them around here somewhere. Oh. Wi-Fi scanner GUI. Products XC10. $10-pack of connectors, and they're marked AVX. Yep, those are them. That's a pretty decent price too for 10 of them, because I think DigiKey for the 10 ones, they're just over $1 in singles. So that's a pretty reasonable price. It is interesting here that they have a separate data sheet. I wonder what the XPDI is a programming and debug interface. I wonder what their pinout is. Pin, clock ground, X bus. Oh, interesting. They broke out USB plus and minus on it, but they don't have ground or power. Huh. That's what the 6-pin. They use a 6-pin version. Well, that's exactly why we should have our custom pad design for it, so that it's clear what it's meant for. Okay. I think I successfully covered all of that. So one thing I'm doing in the native Wi-Fi thing is I'm actually changing the partition table too. So we have this, oh, not that one. We have this finalized partition layout goal for the UF2 ESP32S because I'd like to start providing UF2 like install this using the regular way to get UF2, and then UF2 makes it easier to load stuff. So I want to figure out exactly what the partition... Oh, something has worked with my YouTube chat. Oh, you know what? It's because I didn't make it bigger. Oh. I have the OBS settings so that it crops the bottom and the top of the window. Thank you. I should have remembered that. Now you should be able to read it better too, which is great. Thank you, Mark. As always. Okay, so this was me trying to like push TAC, who does the UF2 stuff, and MinoDev, who works for Espressif and is doing the Arduino code support for it. Trying to get us all on kind of the same page, figuring out what our kind of standard partition layout's going to be. So we have some discussion here. Arduino is actually going to have multiple options. So MinoDev linked me to their Arduino ESP32 tree that has the different partitions that they're supporting. I found some that look like the closest to what we have, but I think what we'll do is we'll just provide kind of like the same partition layout to our Arduino stuff as well, if you do want them to interoperate. And then I noticed that FIINIT is not in there, so I think I'm actually going to drop it. And I'll move it into the OTA data. So that's something I want to do now, and then we'll get into the feedback on the PR from Dan. So, okay, I'm going to have to switch my... I was working on election cal last night, and then this request stuff just opened up, which is cool. I was happy to work on that. So I'm going to switch away. I don't think I'm going to lose... Well, actually, I am going to lose something. Let me save this. I edit files directly on the device, and so my editor is kind of my backup copy. So before I close files that I've been editing from the drive itself, I like to save them back. So I'm going to save this. Into Adafruit requests. So I can pick up where I left off with it. Save, replace. Okay, and then I've got a few PyPortal tweaks that I don't actually want to do. I can redo those, or if I lose them, it's no big deal. Okay, so now I can do quick switch project, and I'm going to switch to CircuitPython. Pendefs, yes. Thank you. It's interesting that they have this like kind of cutout style. Steven says, with unexpected maker's board, 16 megabytes of flash, you could even have a Git repo on the CircuitPython board. Not that I'd recommend that. Yeah, I think Lemora actually does that. Lady Ada has actually done that before, putting Git right on the device. That would be pretty wild. So here's the PDI interface that they've got. You also need an XS02 connector. Okay, which is just the 6-pin version. Wonder how they came up with those names. Programming. Huh. Wonder how that's working out for them. Yeah, one thing we did with Debug Edge is like renumbered all the pins so that the pin numbers would be consistent regardless of how many pins the connector had. Because it's designed to be like, oh, if your board has only a little space, you can choose the like minimal pin ones. But then if you have all of them, they just work. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Okay, so let's first update the partition layout and get rid of, we don't need this. That was the Kaluga stuff we did. And actually, what branch are we on? Git status. Correct. Bruce says, mind you, it won't work for thinner boards. Yeah, that connector is only for 1.6 millimeter PCBs, which is unfortunate. But if people are interested or want to brainstorm other connectors we could use for different size boards, that would be cool. One connector I had on, I've spent a lot of time. This might be my DigiKey, my version of the Great Search on DigiKey. There's a couple categories that I browse a lot. Let me just plug what I do on DigiKey here. One you can see here is rectangular cable assemblies. I just was there getting these like SWD connectors. I think I put all my DigiKey order away already. FPGAs has been one. Card edge connectors is one of them. Is one that I tend to follow a lot. One way I like to do it is just look at quantity available to see what people are using, because typically the things that are being used the most the slot is 1 millimeter, like what I suggested. Seems they had the same experience as you. Yeah, I have nothing against the slot being wider. So these are M2, or no, these are PCI Express mini cards. And they're like, you know, under $1. Actually, I like to look in just quantity one because I like to experiment. So you can hit view prices at and hit apply filters. And now you're going to get, I don't know why it's giving me minimum quantity. 450 still. That doesn't seem right. But some of them that I have my eye on is this M2 form factor, which Maker Diary is actually starting to use, which is very interesting to me. And they're using it for the exact same reason that is really interesting. So edge connectors have the property that you pay for the connector on one board, not two, right? Because the other board can just simply have pads on it. So that's really advantageous if you have like a board you're going to reuse a lot and then want to interface with a number of other boards. So like you put the connector on the expensive thing that you want to use it with other stuff. And this M60 mechanical keyboard, like big PCBs tend to be pricier. And so this is exactly the use case I had for it as well. And I don't think they actually show it here. But I believe this, oh yeah, here it is. This PCB on the back just has an M2 connector, and then you slot the like actual brains, the NRF52840 in this case, just into the board onto this more expensive, larger board, which is super neat and super cool. And I think that the thickness of an M2 card is 0.8. So if we looked at the drawing, so this is the drawing for it. It's a TE M2. They're all going to be standard size. I think that so there's the footprint that you would do on the PCB. Some of them have an explanation of the thickness of the card that goes in there. Oh yeah, here it is. Well, kind of. So the slot itself is 0.92 millimeters wide. So that's like very clearly in my mind that they're expecting the card to be 0.8 millimeters thick. Yeah, it's all the M2 slot is 0 insertion force. It sounds like a good option for durability and ease of use. One of the challenges with it though is that to hold the card down, you actually have to have like a screw at the other end. Yes, Bruce is way ahead of me. Bruce S is. So the other thing that I was thinking of that I found as well, since we're talking card edge connectors, is the SFP Style card edge connector. Let's see if the data sheet's clear. It's 20 pins. They are staggered on the either side. And the slot, I think, is a millimeter. It's actually like... Yeah, I don't see... Oh, so here we go. Yeah, so this is 1.0. and they have a recommendation for like the layout of stuff. Like it has a standard connector. This, what I was thinking this would be great for is actually like a kind of stemma but not stemma, where you just have like a motherboard that has a bunch of these on it, and then you just slot in sensor boards that plug into this. And then what I was thinking for the pinout is that I would actually make it symmetric. So like one thing you have to think about when you're thinking about connectors and stuff is like, how do you make sure it's plugged in right? And in this case, I was thinking actually what you would do is you would just be able to put it in both ways. And then it would work regardless. So that's what I was thinking about. It would just be like SPI and I squared C. Bruce S says there's another thing that handles two sizes, but I fell asleep and couldn't find it in the morning. Yeah, that's neat. And since we're in this connector side channel, the one other thing I've been thinking about in terms of card edge connectors is PCIe regular, which is not actually here. So the other thing is that you can get a lot of high pin count with card edge connector or high pin out. I don't want PCIe mini card. It might not be in edge board connectors, but I'm thinking of regular PCIe Express. Let's just apply filters. Ooh, there's a video of a dude that made the ESP32S2 a computer. What means that it's a computer? Is it that it has a keyboard input and display output? Because I'm thinking about that. That's kind of my holy grail, I think. And TAC just did some host work too, which is cool in the USB. So one thing I've been thinking about, so PCIe is 1.6 millimeter cards. They're very cheap because at least the short ones are, because they're on like tons of motherboards. They are through hole, which means that the footprint is going to be more significant. But there are also actually these weirdo like side to side sort of ones as well. But they get pretty cheap. They stay pretty cheap even if you have a lot of positions or like pins in it. And what I was thinking would be cool actually would be to use these on a breadboard. So you'd have this like 60 pin PCIe that like runs down the middle of a breadboard. Here's a breadboard. So picture this breadboard. It's like 32 or 33 rows tall. And imagine just having like a PCIe slot in the middle that basically connects like 60 pins of an FPGA to every row in your entire breadboard. And then you could just plug things in and then use the FPGA to wire across them. That's one thing I was thinking would be kind of cool. And then you could, of course, if you had one board that like plugged it into the breadboard, and then you could have different things slot into the PCIe, which I thought would be neat. Anyway, that's one thing I look at since I'm on DigiKey. The other thing I was thinking about looking at, memory sockets are the other thing to look at. Pins are always good. The solid state, maybe I should. The solid state lighting connector here is actually where those the Debug Edge connectors live. And then evaluation boards for FPGAs and MCUs. These are actually something I just like to keep an eye on. So I will say like in stock, new products, apply filters, and then we'll sort by, not manufacturer, I will sort by price. So if I'm doing a DigiKey order, I want to see like what new microcontrollers are coming out, and specifically which ones already have like dev boards on them. So we can see here that this is like an STM F103CB, a Mega, which I don't care about. They're getting lots of Nuvoton boards, which are kind of interesting. The problem with reusing a connector is breaking compatibility. You know someone will try to plug in a 280 Ti into their breadboard, probably Linus. Yes. One thing I was looking at the PCIe pinout though, is that you could actually probably make an FPGA board that's not actually not compatible. So it's pretty regular, where the first bit that is always on, like it has JTAG and it has I2C, which is pretty neat. And then like you can do this connection between this pin and whatever. It gives you power. And then I would just ignore all these 12-volt pins. And then I think what I would do going down here is that you basically have these pairs of pins, because PCIe is differential. And I would just make sure that like the FPGA did differential pairing with those as well. I would probably not make grounds ground. I would actually connect them to GPIO, because I want all those pins. But you could actually kind of make it kind of still okay, which I think would be neat. Bruce S. also points out that the Raspberry Pi compute module uses standard SODIMM connectors, which are typically memory connectors. But yeah, I think, the advantage of reusing a connector is that you get great, like a lot of availability and cost, because they're using a lot of stuff. It means that the cost is not too great. If you're the only one buying a connector, you're going to pay more for sure. Okay, so as always, that was a fun thing. I loved thinking about that, and I'm definitely kind of on a tear of like trying to standardize pinouts of things. The byte over 2x5 SWD cables and the Debug Edge stuff. So let's do the partition layout change, and then we'll go over the feedback here that Dan has. So let's do ESP32 partitions, and then PHY data. And I think we could just bump this. So let's bump this to 5, and then bump this 1. That should be good. And now we know that this is what we'll use when we test it. So let me just test it to make sure. So I've got, let's use the camera again. So I've got a Saula here, and on the back I've got the V3 of my adapter wing thing. Notice I didn't place all of the bits because I don't care about like the JTAG one. I haven't been using, so I didn't place it. I didn't even test the LED on this, but the USB works, and that's why it's really handy. So let me get my setup here. And sorry I don't have the overhead going. What I'm doing is I've got a USB hub on my desk. I've got 2 USB cables, one that allows me to switch on and off the data lines. The one that doesn't allow me to switch I will use is the native debug one. And then I will put the other one into the native USB. And I'm bumping my mouse. All right, so let's see, this is a Rover. No Debug Edge on it, that's true. It's pre-Debug Edge. No, I don't have it in my history. One trick I have for tab complete is I could do this. Oh, I'm not even in the right directory. That could be my problem. I saw you got there for the site working. I was going to suggest if you want to try it out on Hugo. Glad it's working. So it's supposed to be... right? Not a hub. I think my hub's unhappy again. I don't get it. Oh. I haven't done this since I restarted my computer. It's hot in here. I've got my Hacktoberfest 2019 shirt on. If you want to start contributing to CircuitPython in October, DigitalOcean runs Hacktoberfest, and you get shirts if you make a few PRs during the month. So if you want to get a shirt and start participating in CircuitPython, that's a great time to do it. So yeah. I think this year they're giving you the option to plant a tree, but I kind of like the shirts. So I'll probably plant a tree on my own and get the shirt. All right, so I'm just checking that it still works after I change the partition table. I guess while we do that, while it runs, what we can do is we can start, let's just start looking at this review feedback. So it's going to be a little tough just because I don't have all that much space because of the stream. So I think what I'll do is I'll see if I can't pull off a vertical split here. Oh, building is going. So it's a little squished, but hopefully that makes sense. I like to see both as I go through it. So let's just take a look. So, oh, Dan's here replying to this question I have in the code, which is, I don't know if you're asking what the exception should be, but in CPython, the socket exceptions are now all subclasses of OS error, so the exception seems fine. Oh, nice. Alvaro says I do afforestation as a hobby. So if anybody needs help planting something, let me know. Happy to help. That's super cool. We need more forests. Okay, so I think this is fine too. It's a little generic. Like, so if you were to try to accept, like, catch this, it's just an OS error. And you can't, like, look any further. And I don't know a great way to replicate it. So I think that this for now, I'm just going to leave it. But maybe what I should do is at least not have a question in the comment there. So I'm going to pull up the corresponding spot in the code. And it's line 59. And I'll just delete it. That's fine. Because what you can do is if in CircuitPython, if you're catching an OS error in that case, like, you will catch the, like, more specific CPython one as well. And it's not clear to me that there is a CPython one to begin with. So I'll just resolve that. So what I'm going to do, and maybe I should do an overview. So Dan gave me feedback, and the way that you typically give feedback is that you associate it with particular parts of the code. And then what happens here is it shows in a PR. So this is to orient us. So this is the pull request. This is saying, like, hey, I want to integrate all these changes into, like, the main version or any other version across different branches. And so you can see all the changes I made. These little red X's and green check marks show that whether the continuous integration tests work. So for CircuitPython in particular, we build all of the boards with the new changes to make sure that there are just no compile errors and that the code size fits and stuff. So up until this point, you can see that we got a green check mark. And now Dan's got back to me with a bunch of comments. And it doesn't look like that much, but it's actually folded. There's this 24 hidden conversations, so we're actually going to want to open that up. And there's a lot. And then, right. Yep, so there's a number of ways that we can kind of respond or resolve all of these. Some of them are simple. They are just like typos and like grammar stuff. Those are easy to fix, and then I just hit resolve. Resolve, as I showed on this first one, it just kind of collapses it. So let's just go to the second one. The other thing we could do is we can click into the file. I thought. So this is the other view. This is there we go. There's a lot of changes. So the comments do show up in this. This is called like the diff views, but this is a new file. So it goes from not existing to this version. And so comments show up here as well. So if we want to see it kind of in context, that's a good way to do it. I think that, so at the top here it says on close, set connected to false. Like Dan points out, like we don't need to know that it's, whether it is or not. We can just always set it. Because if it was, if it's false already, then setting false again is okay. And then I think that, I don't know. So this is the thing with error handling, is like, I don't know when con destroy will ever actually raise an error and set this status stuff. So one thing we could do actually is we could just see if con destroy will ever actually return an error. And then maybe that would give us an idea of like what exception we should raise as a result. ESP TLS con destroy. So that's going to be in ESP IDF components, ESP TLS, and then here. TLS con destroy. So it will give us the, so it does invalid argument, which we should never hit. And then it calls close on the socket and then the return value. Can you have an error when you close a socket? I don't know. It's all this like POSIX API stuff. Basically, I think it's fine. If close is interrupted by a signal that is caught, it shall return -1 with error number set. So it's gonna wait. So I think it's fine. I don't think it's gonna happen. So I think in this case, I'm just not gonna handle it. I'm just gonna assume it works, and if we find out later that it doesn't, then we'll deal with it. So let's go back here. This we resolved that. So I'm gonna go through all these, and then what I will do is I will Actually, what we should do also is we can mark things as viewed. TA says if the connection times out gets reset, or if you're using connection pooling. But so closing it will fail if it's already closed. And even if that's the case, like, we don't care. So this is letting me keep track of what things I've already looked at. And similar to resolving comments, it closes them. David says, when you ignore a return value, is it better to cast to void to let the reader know that you chose to ignore it? I don't. Yeah, TA says, yep, because you're basically closing a dead socket. Well, I don't care if I'm closing a dead socket. I'm still closing it. So like everything after that fact is going to be the same. And the more important thing is that it actually does the TLS stuff that frees up the memory. And it looks like that doesn't return an error code at all. So if I pull up this again, if we look at the implementation, it says, oh, if it's not null, then we do this con delete and note that it doesn't care about, it doesn't have any return code sort of stuff. Awesome. Thanks, TA. Yeah. So if folks, I agree with David or have thoughts about, you know, casting return values to void or whatever, let me know. But I've not seen that before. In this similar case, I even if it returns something, if I ignore it, I just don't even save it to a variable. Okay, so we're going through here. There's no comments from Dan there. Or here. Resolved. Let's say ignore the status instead. It'll only error. I think I'll say I think it'll only error. Socket itself is already closed. The IDF will clean up regardless. Okay. And I guess I'll say start a review and resolve conversation. Steven says there is a compiler directive to warn on ignored return values. Casting to void in that case would avoid the warning, but I've generally not seen it used either. Interesting. I've seen unused parameters and I've seen that used there, but I've never seen it for return values. We have warnings all on generally, so it's got to be kind of an obscure one. Because we do try to have like most of the warnings available. Okay, let's keep going. So what we're doing here is we're going through the files. We're not reviewing them. We're just finding comments from Dan, and we're going to fix them. So this one's really easy. It's just removing a period in the exception message. These are the ones that are super easy to fix. Let's close IDF. Open Common Hal. Socket pool, line 38. And just delete that period. Mark it resolved. Oh, to save space. Exception messages don't have periods in general. So one thing, this is a broader comment. So this is one that we're going to have to kind of check more broadly everywhere. And a really easy way to check that is going to be to actually look at the translations that we're adding. Steven says, warn unused result is the GCC option. Hi, Colt Pointer Hun. Thanks for joining in. David says, maybe that was a convention before smart IDEs could tell you. If I was reading the code from an unknown author, or if Git blame said it was me, then that would be different. I would wonder if the developer thought about the error case. Yeah, I'm generally pretty bad about error handling. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. And maybe we should just run all of those down right now. So if we go back up and look at this, our changes to local pot here, we can see that not a valid IP string has a period. And the nice thing here is it actually tells us what directories to look into. So what I'm going to do them all now because I don't necessarily know. Yeah, Colt, I can give you a recap. So I'm working on CircuitPython, which is easy Python for inexpensive computers called microcontrollers. Specifically, I've been working on the ESP32S2, which is, where's my other one? I have it plugged in. I guess I could show it on the Kluga. So for example, on this board, I can't see. I could switch to product mode. So this big thing here is it's a metal case on top of some smaller chips, and inside of there is a chip that is a 240 megahertz CPU that has Wi-Fi capability as well. So what we're doing today is I'm going through review feedback on changes I made to CircuitPython in order to support the Wi-Fi on this chip. So I'm going through PR review comments. Let me switch the eye tracking back on. If you have more questions, feel free to ask them. Hi, Khalid. Thanks for joining as well. Okay, so we're going to run down all the exception messages that have strings at the end because I was inconsistent about it. And Dan is right. They do take space, and we don't actually need them. We actually haven't used them generally. So I'm just going to go through. So here's not a valid IP string. I'm gonna do them all because I don't know whether Dan put comments on all of them. And if he did, when we're going through them, we can say, oh, we already did that, and just mark it just fine. So I'm gonna delete that, and I didn't do it there. Like I said, I was inconsistent. I think I'm gonna catch him if I just scroll down. We'll have a way to look at all of them as well. So I got these two spots, and did I get this? Yes, I did. I got this other one. So this is in SSL context, so let's go check that out. We don't have line numbers in there because the line numbers can move around, and that would cause changing the POT file more often. You're welcome, Colt. Hopefully that answered your question. If you have more questions, feel free to ask. Unknown failure. All right, this is the last one, this Wi-Fi radio. So let's find it. It's insured bindings. And Wi-Fi password must be, okay. Saving some bytes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change to the top level directly, and I'm actually going to make that translation file again. And you do that by running make translate. And now what we should see is we'll see a diff that appears in that file, and the diff should show us that all those periods were deleted. So we'll know that we got them all. Git diff locale. So here we can see the changes. The date changed because I reran it, and then we're deleting periods here. Pulse out not supported on this chip is removed because we added pulse out support, I think. But yeah, we got all the periods, so that's awesome, and we're done with that bit. So let's go and continue here. No comments. This is a C file, but it has the header guards. That's just a copy and paste thing. It's a little tricky to like look at a bunch of changes with fresh eyes that you've been like staring at for a while. So what I can do here is I could just delete it. Like there's no like top level socket pool stuff implemented right now. So I deleted it. I left the license. Cool. All good. Is this a to-do or does nothing actually need to be done? Right. Can I answer that? So there's two ways I can answer this. Either I can reply inline here, or I could add a to-do in the code itself and explain kind of why it's there. And what do I want to do? I know what I want to say. We don't need to do anything by default. But we will want something here when we support custom SSL certificates. Is that the right term? I don't even know. But basically, like if somebody needs to provide their own certs to verify the server on the other end, like this is how they would do it. So I'll just reply and then I'll mark it resolved as well. And I don't know if the resolution, because all of the comments I'm making here are going to go in one big chunk. But I don't know if that... With this change, I was really trying to just get the basics going. Oops. Johnny says the term is self-signed certificates. Yep, that would be a reason to do that. So I guess the problem here is we got to figure out what form we want to get the MAC address with, which I think is probably we could just do as bytes. We can look and see what so Dan's totally right here, right? Like we shouldn't have a function that's called get MAC address, which is like the getter side of a MAC address property that doesn't return anything. Like that's going to be really annoying. So we're getting it. We're just not actually doing anything with it. So what we've got to do is we've got to, and this is something we'll want to test. And in fact, do I have it all running? Let's go back and see if we have it all running. Dev tty USB 0. Right? Oh, I think we're in the wrong place again. Now we're going. I don't know if the USB's correctly hooked up. Is this interesting to folks? I know this is something I haven't showed yet. Going through review feedback. We've definitely starting to experience the gamut of which that can happen, which is good. We got 40 minutes, so we should be able to get through it all. That'll be one step closer to getting it in main. But there is a bug. The SPI is currently broken, which I suspect is because maybe the IDF is trying to do DMA. But I think Johnny says he finds it interesting. Good. The SPI was broken when I added the PSRAM support. So that's why I suspect that there's like a problem with like where memory needs to be. So if folks have ideas on how we could handle that, generally I want to put stuff in PSRAM, But I think what I'll do is, oh, I've seen this before. I've got to clean. I just cleaned it and tried again. I don't think the flash is going to work either, but we'll get there when we get there. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do for the memory thing is the way I'll do it is everything starts in PSRAM. If we need it for DMA, then what we'll do is we'll move it into internal RAM. And there's going to be trickiness about like managing that and managing when it's freed, which is an interesting thing. And then once it's in RAM, we'll leave it there. And we'll leave it there so like with the idea that like you're likely to reuse it again for the same thing. So I think that's a good compromise. But we definitely don't want to put everything there. The person who was talking to me about it also said that they were having some success going between the two, like using SPI on the ESP32 with stuff that was in PSRAM. So it's possible it's a different question as well. David says, keep at it. Good to see the work process. Not related, but another work process is the CI actions on Git. And the question about the failed build that happened last week, where the build needed to be kicked to rebuild again to get it to compile. Yeah, I think you're talking about our ESP builds have had some problems. Or are you talking about on the native Wi-Fi stuff? I can cover the things that I had to do. I'm going to open it in another tab so that I don't lose my place. On the original tab, we have somebody's introducing a camera API module, which I think some of you may be excited about. So yeah, if we're looking here, so you can see that it failed here. And then, so the way that you see why it failed, you can click here, you get details. It's really bad about showing you the one you actually want, which is unfortunate. But if you just hit details on any of them, and I middle clicked, I think, yeah, regular click will do it in this browser. But you get a list of all the builds, and it's the ones with the red X that don't work. So you can find those and click there. Alvaro says, yes, ESP cam for the win. So here you can see that it said that the .data section will not fit in the region flash firmware. This is on STM, like totally unrelated to my work, but somehow like things overlapped enough. Yeah. So that's one thing. And so what I did is we are trying to compile CircuitPython for boards where we have a lot of space as -02 and not OS. OS is optimized for size. O2 is like, there's 3 levels or 4 levels of performance optimization, which is like O0, O1, O2, O3. And that doesn't necessarily like indicate how many, that doesn't necessarily, yes, folks are correcting me on the build failure. But yeah, so most of our builds that have a lot of space, we're trying to build as O2 because they run faster than OS. But to fix this one, I had to switch the settings for this board so that it compiles OS, not O2, because of the way that it like doesn't have external SPI flash and things. That was one build failure. That's not the build failure that folks are asking about. The other thing that happened last week was GDB GUI released a new version, which is the reason that the Kaluga build didn't work. All of the ESP32S2 builds failed, but I think Dan did them manually. But yeah, so the way that I fixed it is I actually just removed those requirements from my copy of the ESP IDF. Or I left the GDB GUI one, but it also depended on this other thing. And I get the impression from this comment that it was just like a bug in the dependencies of GDB GUI, which seems to be fixed. Either way, we don't use it. It doesn't matter. We could delete it. It's kind of silly that we have to get it installed just to not use it on a CI system. So that's how I fixed the builds around that. Is I just loosened the restrictions on the requirements. But yeah, there should be. So if you didn't know, if you want the builds for it, there's an artifacts drop down for all of these builds. And there should be, it's sorted alphabetically. It's kind of a tiny drop down. So there's Espresso Sala 1, and there's no Kaluga, which is what David must be talking about. Which is interesting because it's not actually listed here. Oh, and you know why that is? It's because the Kaluga board definition is not in the native Wi-Fi, not in the native Wi-Fi branch. So this build here is without the Kaluga. Now we can update it. Let's finish the review feedback, and then we'll merge in merge in main, and we'll snag it that way. But yeah, let's get a bit more. Let's keep going. So we need to figure out. Actually, we were going to test. Is it port? I forget. Now it's going to be in my. Now it's going to be in my completion history is the wrong thing, which is great. I'm just going to redo my hub. It just hates me. Now it exists, and we'll flash it again. I don't know, how far do we think we are? Am I through all of the review feedback? I can collapse this again. I don't think it's that bad. So I'm skipping ahead here. I'm just gonna mark files as viewed that don't have comments. Empty. So yeah, I'm just going through and closing the files that don't have comments. And I'll reply to everything else. Maybe this will take a while. There is a lot. Awesome. Should it also support a bytes buff? Yes, in the future. Whoa. Didn't want to sucked into implementing everything. That was a really, like, a big change like this. That was a big challenge for me, is like really being deliberate about what I was gonna implement and what I wasn't. Because there's like, with socket itself, there's like TCP, UDP, RAW, all that stuff. I'm explaining exactly what I need to explain here. I wonder if ESP32 cam can be used as ESP32 for other functions apart from being only a camera. Any idea? I don't know specifically what you're talking about for ESP32 cam, but I imagine any board with an ESP32 can do other things as well. There's some pretty like not cool ways to lock down hardware so you can't do what you want, but I imagine something called ESP32 cam you can. You do have access, easy access to loading your own code. Correct. I wanted to focus. A TCP client for now. Okay. He might ask me to delete it all, but, which I could do. Or I can just leave it there and follow up later. That's a big file. Only one comment. This is where I tend to. I make a lot of comments in shared bindings because I have a lot of opinions about APIs. But I guess I should have read the top level comment that Dan made on this review as well. I'm doing this because I'm closing all these files because it gives me a better idea of how much I have left. Yeah, there's some stuff. Nothing here. Nothing there. Okay. Awesome, making progress. Oh, perfect, Bruce, thank you. Does GitHub support a tool to mark and ignore files without comments? I don't know. I haven't thought about that. It's actually relatively new that you were able to like pre-comment in reply. It used to be that like for every response you would have, it would send it separately, which is kind of annoying. Interesting. Fixes. I wonder how they fixed it. GDB GUI actually looks pretty cool. I mean to take a look at it. It's a GDB API that is implemented in the browser. So it's like GDB GUI brings up a server that then you open to the browser. But I like the idea of smaller separate tools. So like if I could integrate like looking at register maps and stuff, that would be really neat. So it looks like they just limited it. GDBMI is also a top level requirement. Do you think I should ask, like, could we have separate requirements for CI? Because that would be really nice. I wouldn't be surprised if Ivan was okay with that. But then they'll probably ask me why I'm not using their like Docker images. All right, I'm gonna subscribe to that so I get emails. Thank you for pointing it out to me, Bruce. But I won't comment right now. David says that would be a good question. Someone asked that on an issue and they recommended using pip to install the correct packages. But that I tried to do that. Or there's something in the IDF that like makes sure that everything's installed. It was not that simple. I kind of ran into it. This one here is super easy, so I'm just going to knock that out while I'm looking at it. It's in shared bindings or shared module. So shared module is a place where C code goes that is shared amongst all the ports. And so all this IP address stuff is totally fair game. It's under init, and he just wanted np obj from pointer, I think. Done. Okay. And now we can close that too. Okay, let's ignore that stuff and go back to the fact that it's running. And we have output. Let me blip my other USB cable so we should see, you can't see it, but CircuitPy popped up. And now we can screen into ACM1, which is the CircuitPython. And I guess we actually have to do import wi-fi.radio.mac address. And the REPL, if it gets none back, it says it doesn't print anything. So this is where we would expect something back. And what I'm curious to see is just what the Beely API returns for MAC address. Or what we could do is we get MAC address from we actually introduced it in the network as well. So what do we do for network? Network, RSID, channel. Oh, we don't support it yet. Okay, so we're going to have to look and see what we return in for a MAC address for Beely. Because Beely IO adapter has enable address. Oh, it has an address type. This is one thing, like MAC addresses between Beely and Wi-Fi are the same length, right? Like maybe we should actually have like split out MAC address into something separate. We can take a look at the implementation here. So like ports, NRF, Common HAL, Beely IO. So once you're in Common HAL, it's the same path and the same file. So just look for get address. That's the internal version. So Beely IO has an address object, which I feel pretty lazy about. I don't really want to have to implement my own address object, which is kind of bad. I certainly don't want to copy it. Like, is the concept of a MAC address the same? Should we split it out? That's kind of like an API, breaking API change, which is not the end of the world given that it's in Dunder Beely IO. Shared module, Beely IO, address. So it takes num Beely IO address bytes, and there's a type to it. Address type. What address types are available? It's always 6? Really? Or it's a generic thing? So it's basically just a type in bytes. I think I'm just going to return it as bytes, and we'll go from there. We can always change it later. But I'm running out of time, and I have a lot of feedback to go through still. And I would like to get this done today. I have a hard stop at 5, and my voice is kind of tired already, but I think I'll just create a new bytes object. So where were we? We're all at the top. MAC address is getting thrown away and nothing is getting returned. So let's go to, I think, do we have it open still? Socket pool, radio. This is all the earlier stuff we were doing. ESP32S do we have? What keyboard do I have? I have a keyboard.io keyboard. This is half of it. It's a mechanical keyboard that's split, which is neat. I think it's just keyboard.io. Is it really? That would be awesome. Ah, it is. Keyboard.io. That's pretty awesome. It's not this one. It's this one. The Model 1. But they're updating it to the Model 10, I think. Which is probably a Model 2 in binary. If I had to guess. Okay. We need to figure out how to make a bytes object in Wi-Fi radio. And that's in Wi-Fi radio. Get MAC address. And we want to return np_obj new something. I could never remember. So there's a couple places to look if you're doing this sort of like C to Python conversion. Obj is a great place to start. And I would just look for bytes. So there's something that you could use for empty bytes. And then this is what we want. We want np_obj new bytes, giving it the data and the length. And we know both of those things. So MAC and 6. And there we go. And we should just double check as well that that's actually what we say in our comment that we're going to return. MAC address read only. This says address, so let's change that to bytes for now. So it's actually correct. I copied this from Beely.io, that's why it said address. Okay. We did that. We resolved it. Let's actually test it since we're here. So this is what we're going to do again. But I'm going to just kill that. And can you include the file where the constant is defined? What constant? The 6? Instead of using a magic number. Yeah, I know you don't like magic numbers. I could. Yeah. I assume that Wi-Fi MAC addresses are always 6, though. Is that not true? I'm not super against having a magic number. It's so isolated. If it was used in multiple places, which I guess I'm using it in 2 places now. I would probably just have it as a local pound define. Like if anything, I could like I would just do it here. MAC address bytes. And then like as I need it in more places, I could also look in the IDF to see if they have a thing too. I'd be happy with a local define. Perfect. And we just came up again. So let's just do the same thing. Import Wi-Fi, wi-fi.radio.mac address. And we get a bunch of stuff. And that's because Python likes to show. I guess one thing we should make sure is that it's actually just the same thing. Like we get the same result. I don't know if that's correct. Like I don't have anything else to compare it to. But it's better than nothing. Again, we can fix it later if it's wrong. One thing that we'll probably have to think about later is like the order of the bytes. May not match like how it gets displayed by the things. Okay, move line 90 down to just before or after 95 for clarity. I always like to see the base type always set immediately after the obj new. So let's take a look. It's just further down in radio. And so I think, you know, we modified this a little bit for size. So I think Dan's just talking about reordering these 2 lines so that setting the base type is the first thing. 48 bits. Ooh, let's look at this. Thank you, David. 48 bits would be 6 bytes. Media access control address. This use is common in most IEEE 802 technologies, including Ethernet, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. So really what we should do is we should have a separate MAC address. Like we could even, just like we have IP address, we should have a like separate MAC address module that just has helpers. Maybe there's things already. Return value is the MAC address is a 48-bit integer. We wouldn't want to do that as a 48-bit integer because, I mean, we could, but it won't work for, we have some builds that can only store integers up to 30 bits. And that would be no good. I was definitely like, when I was redoing some of the, oh, nice, Me6. It's an example, though. But yeah, they have MAC address length. They just did not write it out, which I think they should have. But yeah, it's basically what we did. All right, let's keep rolling. Rolling. Okay, so we moved the line down. We'll compile it later. Could this get called twice by accident? Should you check if it's already deinitted? We can make sure that Scanton Networks knows whether it's deinitted or not. Oh, Me6, let me... Sorry, the bot caught you for duplicate characters and words. I see what you said. They pointed out that in ESP Wi-Fi, there's an ESP now, there's a definition for MAC address as well. Let me make sure that it didn't mute you. It doesn't look like it. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Sorry the bot caught you, but we had the bot turned up pretty well because people were spamming a lot. We maybe should actually turn that down because it's not quite as bad as it used to be. So let's make sure that scanned networks deinit can just be called twice, which hopefully it can. So let's look at scanned networks and iter next. But this is in not in common how. Scan networks, wait for scan. Next channel deinit. Scan networks done. If scanning, then we do that. And what does done do? If not done, done says done is true. If results is not null. So it's totally fine if we call it multiple times. Maybe, but scan networks handles being called twice just fine. Good, good, good. Okay. Here, if password length is greater than the 0, do the mem copy. So you could just skip the check. I feel like that's some sort of thing that I would have added if it wasn't the case. But yeah, I can delete it, and so we'll have to go through this and test it again. Like I'll have to do some basic testing that I'm not going to get to today, but you can basically get it to the point that like it needs to be tested. So that's what Dan is arguing. If it's 0, then it's fine. Okay. So basically, like if there's no specific question I have to get back to, then yes, it should. Then I don't have to respond. So like if he's suggesting something and like I just make the change, then I don't have to write anything. I just resolve the conversation. So that's what he's suggesting here, is that it's a really common pattern for us to like wait, right? So here in this case, we're just waiting for either a timeout or like to get our ping back. And there's this macro called run background tasks. This is when like your audio will load and we'll like check the reload timer. And so he says like, oh, don't you want to make sure that you're not interrupted? So like if you control C, you want to be able to control C out of it. So that would be, I was hoping he implied that we do it above, but it might be above in something else. Ping, address, connect. Do we do it here? I don't know why my word wrap doesn't always work. Ah, here we go. This is what he's talking about. So we also want to make sure here that we're not interrupted. And it's also important to know, it's also important to make sure that we clean up well. So here we'll delete the session, for example. So if we get interrupted, our elapsed times will be this, and received will be 0 still, which is fine. So that's good. Yep, I did. So that file's good. 10 to go. I don't know how many more comments I've got to do. Scanned network number is fetched but never used. Is that correct? Maybe add a comment. Yes. I'll add a comment there. So that's in scanned networks. Since we're throwing them away. So again, I'm just going to resolve it because now there's a comment there. And maybe that's not good. Maybe Dan will disagree with me on that. Okay. Yeah, it could be a switch. I don't know. I guess switches have defaults. Oh, awesome. Me6 says, I've not seen / used the GitHub review process before. Pretty interesting to see it in action. Awesome, great. I'm glad I'm doing this. I've got 9 more files in 2 minutes, which is not going to happen. But I'll keep going. We got 30 people watching. And I'm not talking as much. And I really would like to finish this today. So if I'm going to keep working anyway, I might as well leave the stream on. The camera's still going, which I'm probably jinxing. But I would like to get through this. Yeah, I thought I added some of this already. I mean, look, maybe I'm not doing it that I want to be doing. Comment how Wi-Fi and it. What do I want to be doing here? So here's all this retry stuff. And so this is old retry stuff that I copied from an example. So Dan's right that here I just can delete that. I did that. There is some logging here, which I think I've been deleting to keep it clean, but like it's actually quite nice. And then this is left over as well. And then Dan was saying he would like a switch on event ID, which we could do. I think. And then it's what, case. And like I said, I'll test this at some point. I may actually get back on the review before I test it. Is that bad? Is that bad form? Break. And then start stop connected. I think what I want to do is I just want to have case. These are really just for me later, so I don't have to look up what they are. Because I know I'm going to want to need it. I'm going to need them later. Handle later. And then I'll just do a default. And of course I spelled it wrong. Dylan says, I use GitHub quite a bit for work, but never use the review feature. It's cool to see it in action. Awesome. Now you've seen it. It's been a while that I've been using it. Okay, and then this last one. Station auth mode change. Here. Is it that I get quiet when I'm in the zone? I'm trying to get something done. This I'm gonna make a big case. And I think I'm gonna wanna leave the brackets. You can actually do the brackets here. And we can return. This all needs to go in one. And that should be good. I think that was pretty big, so let's at least make sure it compiles. Which is usually my bar. I benefit a lot from unit tests because I'm actually quite bad at manually testing. Misik says, oh, I think I found something to work on. I just raised a PR on Arduino BLE to expose the advertised service data. And looks like I could contribute something similar here. Are you wanting to set it or get it? Because I think we do support service data already. Like the low-level BLE API in CircuitPython just like gives you bytes. Yeah, we do. I think we have manufacturer data, but not service data. So it should be very, very similar to manufacturer data. Okay, it said no work to do, which I don't. Did I save the file? I did. Let's just clean and rebuild, and I'll keep going. I just want to make sure that I got like all the syntax of the switch right, which I think I did. But you never know. David says, we're here for you. Go for it. All right, let's roll. Let's roll through this. Switched to a switch. And made it clear what is for later. Okay. I will look for it. Yeah, I did a lot of the BLE stuff. Why commented out? Old. I did that and I didn't delete it. That's covered later, and this is covered as well. He'll know that that's old. Okay, so now in init, there's a case that I didn't handle. That I say handle this. Error messages are like error handling, especially when you don't know. Wi-Fi init. I don't know. Let's we'll just do a generic MP raise. I'm gonna say runtime error. My buddy who I'm playing games with at 5 asks for timeline. Let me just reply to him. I'm such a bad streamer. Okay. Communication is good. Okay, we're going to raise a runtime error and just say translate failed to init Wi-Fi. And we're not going to put a period. We don't need more periods there. All right, it built. We'll build it again. Done. And my wife just, okay. Change in dinner plans. Yep. Okay. Let's keep rolling. That's the other nice thing. Fix indentation. Ugh. 138 at the bottom of that. Oh, at the bottom of reset. Oh, look at that. We got a couple tabs in there. How annoying. I might have copied them in. Oh. I recommend, if you can, just having your editor show. See, if I highlight it, it shows dots for spaces, and yeah, I definitely copied stuff in. And lines for tabs. So I think what I'll actually do is I'll hit Control H, and that will find all the tabs for me, and then I'll just do 4 spaces. And now I've got tabs there. Ugh. Like Python would give you a syntax error for that. Okay. Good. Go back to, wow, I have a lot of Firefox windows open. Resolve. And that file's good. 8 to go. No filter region through expand-4. Is that the way to do it in Vim? Okay, npconfig port, move the comments. Make. Oh, this was an error. I think that some really weird error that they found with makefiles. Oh, it's an external Linux command. I didn't know that. Some small BLE sensors use advertised service data to share the current readings without having to connect. Neat. That sounds Me6. If you haven't looked at the BroadcastNet stuff I did, I basically pack sensor values into the manufacturer data for Adafruit, because Adafruit has a manufacturer ID. See the before code. I don't know how many K that is. If it's an even number of K. So we're gonna go back to partitions, and Dan's was saying like it would be nice if all of the sizes were in kilobytes, which they're kind of odd values. But let's just see what they are in kilobytes. Like a kilobyte is 1024. So like we could say it's 1408K, or if we did it in megabytes, it would be not that. 1.375 kilobytes. Like that's, oh nice. Yeah, check that out, Me6. It's definitely not like it won't operate with other sensors, but I was pretty happy with it. So we could, should we put, is it better to put 1408K here? I guess. That's a little bit easier to read. And then, what is 0x2000? I don't even know. This is Dan's argument, I think. So it's 8K. That's certainly better. And then 5 is, must be like 12, 20. 20K. And then C. C00 is 3K. Okay. All right, so we switch those to Ks. Does it all add up to the total? It should. David says, yeah, K looks nicer. It's a good suggestion. Yes, it should. And that's the reason I was using the other form, is like I did the math to try to get it all nice. So yeah, it should be 4096. So we could just add it together. Bootloader.bin. Should be 8. 32K. So now we could do 32 plus 3 plus 20 plus 8. 63. So I would expect it to be 64. There's a gap. 3K. Yeah, so the partition table is marked as 3K, but there's an extra K between these two. Which is fine. We're not going to use it for the partition table. We could make NVS a little bit bigger. I don't think there's any alignment constraints. What is 1024 in hex? So it's 400. So I think what we could do is we could make this 8C, and then this would be 21K. I think that's okay. So now it should add up, right? 21. And then let's just do the remainder. So 1408 times 2 plus 256 plus 960 plus, let's do the 64, 4096. So it's a 4 megabyte file. So yeah, that should be right. Okie doke. Let's call that good and go back to our review and hit resolve. It certainly makes those like smaller K values easier to understand. Our port heap get top and port heap get bottom not regular addresses, but 32-bit word indexes. I'm not sure why you're multiplying by 4. I would think the difference is still a byte count. They are pointers to uint32t, not. Maybe that's bad? So the addition is based on the size of uint32. Fake boards. So I will leave that, and that's a case where like I want to make sure he understands it, so I'm not actually going to resolve it. Is this deliberately empty? Yes. Yes, we don't support it yet. Okay. That's good. 5 more files. This is a copy and paste problem. I copied this over. So that's, what was that in? Too many windows in a tiny space. CircuitPython. Okay, that makes it even less of a helpful comment. Mark is showing off his ESP, or no, his STM32F1 boards in Discord. Okay. And that should be resolved. Shouldn't need any follow-up. Done with that. 4 left. Okay. So we're into IP address. And it says yeah. Yeah, this union should be in string bytes. I'm really bad with type annotations. I think there's probably even an even better way to annotate it. Is that in here? Where did he do that? I've got like 6 Firefox windows, which makes clicking the thing at the bottom to switch really hard. Okay, it's not in here. It's in this file, and that should be in here as well. F032. Oh yeah. Always off by 1. I'm very excited for the G4s. The G4s in the 32QFN package that are not out yet. Okay. Yep, that's right. Anything else in here? Nope. Ooh boy. We're getting through them. Socket pool. Let's pull it up. Oh man, 420 already. I'm definitely gonna have to have a snack. So on socket, it looks like some of these have default values, but that's not shown in the signature. True, and we should set them. So let's see. Type defaults to AF inet. Nope, sock stream. Proto equals family equals AF inet. And proto equals oh, I think we ignore it. IP proto TCP. Sure. Ah. Interesting. Phil's lab has a KiCad STM32 hardware design and GLC PCB assembly. Which STM are they putting on it? Can it run CircuitPython? Are they going to do a video about getting CircuitPython going? All right, that's done. Not sure why you didn't use the usual args parse all. It's inherited from microsocket and probably more code efficient. I'll just say it's inherited from microsocket. If he really wants me to switch it, then. So this is a case again where I'll let Dan resolve it. STM32F405 that would run CircuitPython. All right, that's good. 2 more. I don't see doc strings for socket pool or socket here. Did I miss it? Here or elsewhere. They should be top. Yeah, they're just here. They are done at the class level in the individual file. No need to have an outer comment because they end up in a file like this. This color. Okay. Meatman Stan says, streamer, I just learned syntax for Python, but I have no clue what to do now. What did you do after first learning my first language? So, I don't know if I think I've told this story, but since we're going, my first language with if statements and for loops and stuff was PHP. I learned it from this book. And in fact, for a few of them, you could see here's using dynamic variables. Oh, that side. Using dynamic variables. And for the first few, I actually dated it. So if maybe if I turn it on to that mode, I actually dated when I did it. So 2002 is when I first learned like if statements and for loops and stuff. What I quickly found was that I had projects in mind that I wanted to work on. And so I quickly moved from a book like this onto tutorials online for like how to make a website poll and how to do all sorts of different, like make a forum, that sort of thing. So that is one route you could go, is just like if you have an idea of something you want to do, just like start to learn the things you need in order to do that. Some folks don't quite have that much idea on what they want to do. And in that case, I would recommend finding either a book or a tutorial online that like walks you through exercises that will get you into more advanced uses as well. If you're interested for hardware stuff, a great place to do it is if you go to, I work for Adafruit, that's what the stream is about. If you go to learn.adafruit.com, Adafruit allows you to make really cool projects that use CircuitPython or Arduino. And so another thing you could do is like, if you don't have a project in mind, but you want to go that route, this is a great way to just browse all of the different projects that Adafruit has documented. If you find one there that you're really interested in, you can then kind of follow that tutorial. You'll copy the code to make it work, but then you might want to modify the code to get to like change it to do the thing that you want rather than kind of what the default thing is. So those are a couple options. Let's keep rolling. This is good. So we're on our last file. And I don't see any comment. Oh, wait, no. This one's already viewed. It's just open. So we have this last radio one. Eric says, starting with an attractive proven project is a great way to learn. And Meatman Stan says, thank you very much for taking time to explain. No problem. I'm here to help and answer questions. PHP, like, languages are more similar than different, especially in the ones that are commonly used. So like learning if statements, for loops, functions, classes, like that's going to get the bulk of the commonly used languages. And they vary a little bit, but not so much that learning if statements in one is not useful in the other. Okay, so under Wi-Fi Radio Connect, we don't need a default. So let's just go there. We're on our last file, and then we're going to call it a day. So under Connect here, we can delete this. And resolve conversation. That is our first comment. And then SSID should never be null. Yeah, I must have copied it. But this'll error out if okay. True. And then a period, which we got at the start. Love that. And that's it. Awesome. Okay, so first I'm just going to do a quick sanity check build. And I'm going to properly clean it as well. We're on the home stretch. I think I will actually try to update to get the Kaluga in there in case people do want to try this and test it out for me. I don't think I'm going to test it today because I've got 30 minutes until I'm actually like done for the weekend. But that doesn't mean that I can't get it to a point where other people could test it. I'm just pulling out my standing mat now that I'm standing. But yeah, I need to have a snack too. So what I'll do is, once this builds, I will commit it, and then I will merge in the latest main, merge in the latest main version, and then push that merge up to my native Wi-Fi branch. But I guess I could start to wrap up. I never cleanly end the stream, really. But I guess we could do cat compiling. He's asleep in the window there. He's passed out, and you can see him better. All right, it failed. First partition offset 8C0 overlaps end of partition table 9. So that's bad. And something we definitely changed. So, oh, that's because this starts at this has to be 9. Let's just change it back. And that makes, this must be 4K, not 3. So this line is actually commented out. So yeah. Man, the bot is just not happy today. Sorry about that, folks. If you ever have trouble with the bot, just DM me in. Yeah, you had too many dots there, Bruce. It didn't. It deleted it for duplicate characters / words. Yeah. Okay, so it built. Great. Let's get status and just add. I don't want to add socket test, so I've got to be a little bit more picky. Git add common hell, git add mp config port and partitions, git status, git add pi, and don't hate the bot. I know it can be annoying, but it saves us from some really terrible things. You don't see unless you're a mod, you don't see the stuff that it does catch, and some of the stuff it catches is just gross. So it saves your moderators even if it's kind of annoying. Changes based on Dan's feedback. Not a great commit message, but that's okay. And it needs my PJP key. Or GPG key. Oh, I can't. My browser's not big enough. squeeze it down, copy something else randomly to override it in my... Okay, now we're going to do git fetch Adafruit. Hopefully this is trivial. Git merge Adafruit main. So here's us integrating the latest changes. Oh yeah, our bot does exempt some people. So if you want to be a CircuitPythonista, you probably are okay. Okay, there's a merge conflict in locale CircuitPython pot, which is kind of annoying. Let's see how widespread it is. It's just here, just the date. So we'll do that by hand. And then I think I'll actually make translate again, just to make sure that it's actually up to date. So the purple is CircuitPythonista role, so you will get pinged around meeting times on Mondays, but besides that, if you want it, just say it and I'll add you. It's totally fine. Just you will get pinged a couple times a week, but that's it. And you'll actually be able to talk in the CircuitPython channel. We had to lock that down. Apparently having a bunch of people in a voice chat brings all the bots in, which is annoying. Oh, there we have CircuitPythonistas and CircuitPython helpers. Okay, Me6 and Johnny were added. Bruce, let me know if you want to be in it as well. Git status, git add locale, and git submodule update for protomatter. Okay, and now we just git commit. Discord crashed on Johnny. Okay. And let's call that good. I should probably compile it again, but when I push it up, it'll... Hello World's easy in Python. Anyway, let's wrap up. Thank you so much for hanging out with this deep dive with me. It's always a pleasure chatting with you all. This normally happens Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific here on the Adafruit streams of all sorts. There is a playlist of all of them on the Adafruit YouTube, which is youtube.com/Adafruit. If you want to check out past episodes, lots of deep divey goodness. Heads up, I'm taking a long weekend this weekend, going for a hike tomorrow. And next week, everything is shifted to CircuitPython Day, which is the 9th, which is Wednesday. So US hours, we're basically streaming all day. So in the morning, we have our CircuitPython weekly meeting, which we're doing as a special edition and streaming on all our streaming platforms. And then the deep dive will be at the normal time, but on Wednesday, not Friday. And so we'll cover some stuff there. I think the SPY debugging sounds like a good topic to do there. If you have ideas, what you'd like to see me do in a future deep dive, either next week's CircuitPython Day one or just one in general, let me know. I am more than happy to take suggestions. And I realize I'm still on CatCam. I'm sorry. I didn't show you any of the Git update stuff because I was in CatCam. But if you want to see it, you can kind of see what I did there. No, you can't because it's still on the wrong thing. Doesn't matter. This is a deep dive. Come hang out. Thank you all. Normally Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific here on Discord, but next week is on Wednesday, not Friday. Glad some of you made it here as well on this different day as well. I think that's it. If you want to support Adafruit and support me indirectly through that, you can go to adafruit.com, purchase some hardware, and play around with it. Lots of that hardware runs CircuitPython, which is what we were working on today. And yeah, until next week, I will see you on CircuitPython Day. Have a great weekend, a long weekend for those of us in the US. I hope you get outside before fall comes here. So with that, signing off, and I'll see you next week.